you filled this time? This guy, what's the story?
Yeah, Dan Kuss is, he's the ringleader of Creative Grease. How you going, Dan?
G'day, how you doing?
Pretty good. Tell us about Creative Grease. So what is it, and what role do you play being the ringleader?
Okay, good question. Creative Grease, we're a design and marketing agency, communications design you might call us. Based in Adelaide, we help small to medium enterprise grow using good sales and marketing tools and strategy. Ringleader, well, I think sometimes too often in business we take ourselves a bit too serious.
Okay.
So, as the owner of the business, I've got that right to call myself whatever I want when the staff aren't calling me other things. And so it just takes a bit of the professional stark edge off things, and I like to think of myself as a bit more fun than what you might call yourself in other circles.
And
Does that make sense?
And maybe people work better in that sort of environment. Maybe people are a bit more productive in that sort of environment.
Yeah, I mean, we all agree you have more fun at work and you're more productive when the environment is conducive to play, and that's what I try to achieve in my little fishbowl.
Now, how have you and the Blind Sporting Council encountered each other?
Good question. I was introduced to the Blind Sporting Council through a strategic partner of mine, Dimitri, and I was lucky enough to do some work with Raj and her team to develop the branding for their core campaign, which is called I Support a Star.
Yep, and the I Support a Star, of course, is EYE, which matches up nicely with the Blind Sporting Council.
Yeah, that's right.
And so what have you done so far with them?
Well, we've done a lot of things with them. As I said, we only really came on board to start with to work on I Support a Star. But we had such a good time with them, as you often do when you're working for an awesome cause, that we worked on all the other brands of theirs as well, like I Achieve and I Change and the iView newsletter, their Eye to Eye Ball, which a lot of people might know about and hopefully attend, which does an amazing job of supporting the work that they do and affording more stars with these kinds of challenges to get out and play sport.
Dan, I'm really interested with things like this. I guess you have meetings or brainstorming sessions, etc., but sometimes do really good ideas come when you're not actually at work, if you know what I mean, or when you're not thinking about work, but an idea will sort of spring into the head that you think, we can do something with this?
Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. The name Creative Grease is really a code name for drinking red wine, because we think of alcohol as a bit of a social lubricant, and it's a good lubricant for ideas when you're stuck. So, yes, we'll sit around and have a brainstorm with our clients or with our team, have a glass of wine or a beer, and scribble on the whiteboard. Our whole wall in our studio is a whiteboard that we can draw on and rub off, and it's like child's play when you get to put ideas out, see them, compare them, and then develop them.
Do you ever have the situation, Dan, where the red wine makes the idea seem better than what it really is in the cold hard light of day?
Yeah, it's a bit like beer goggles or wine goggles. You might get a bit overexcited about an idea sometimes and then have to come back to reality the next day. But it's always good to start with crazy ideas and then pull them back to something you can sell, right?
So what happens? Do you come up with an idea and then you think, well, that's a good starting point, and then you try and refine it and sort of work on it? I mean, I guess, it's literally a working document?
It is. We like to be as outlandish and unrestricted as possible when you start brainstorming ideas, because there's no such thing as a bad idea. It's just an idea that might be good for another project. So you do come up with silly ideas, you might act them out, you might draw them, you might make a little sketchbook, and then you see what you can pluck out of it with the client. We always do this with the client because they might see things that we can't.
Are you sure? And particularly if it's the Blind Sporting Council, they might be in that boat. What about as far as, I guess, you sort of said, having fun and that sort of thing. I mean, I'm assuming that sometimes some clients are very, very serious, and even though they might know what you're like, is it a bit of a challenge sometimes to win people over who might have a very serious side to them? Yes,
it is. I like to think that once these challenging clients get a taste of the culture that we try to create at Creative Grease, they break down some of those barriers and become more playful. We still do run into challenges where we just can't get a good idea past someone. And you know what? You have to either decide, are we a good fit or not? Can we find a middle ground, which is a win-win for everybody, or do we just turn it off and try something else?
Where'd you get your name from?
Brainstorming with my wife and one of my team members on what we can use. It's got the word creative in it because that's what we do, but it's not already taken. And you know what? Like I said before, alcohol is something, or red wine is something that I referred to in a blog of mine as the creative grease, the lubricant for good ideas. So we went with that.
Okay, and of course the grease is Grease, as in the grease that the people use as a lubricant, as you say. What about this sort of tough time economically? You know, everyone's doing it tough. A, do you do it tougher, or B, do you get pretty busy because people are looking for a point of difference or something else that they can come to you with? Good question. I find that when the economy is tight, marketing is one of the first things that gets slashed because people don't think they need marketing when there's a downturn. And honestly, it's the opposite, because when there's blood in the streets, you should be taking advantage of the fact no one else is doing it. That said, it's a matter of demonstrating more value. You have to show more value, and you have to give more value, and you have to clearly demonstrate a return on investment when people are clinging on to their pennies tighter. We all need to see more confidence in the solution. Sure. And, of course, the Blind Spotting Council are a not-for-profit organisation. Does that make any difference as to the way you approach it? Maybe if it was a corporate end of town?
Yes and no, and I hate saying that. But,
well, it depends.
It depends, because generally when you're doing pro bono work, you have more creative freedom. The client can't say, I'm paying for that, therefore it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is you have more stakeholders that you need to satisfy, and also when it's a charity or a pro bono work like what Raj is involved in, it has an incredible reach. So you really want to do an awesome job for everybody.
Sure. What about as far as, working for an organisation, say, like the Blind Sporting Council, being aware of who they are, not so much their clients, or me or their clients, or, the people that their services are targeted at, yes. Not offending. Is that sometimes a fine line to tread?
I think that the biggest risk of offence is in the language around the disability or the vision impairment, and not being too, I suppose, condescending or patronising, and without realising it. That's probably the biggest risk, I would say. Okay, so it's rather being too soft rather than too hard, if you like. Yes, potentially. Sometimes we baby people when we don't need to, and they actually want to be treated like adults or as able-bodied people. So we need to be aware of that. So through your work in particular, or maybe even in your general life, have you had much dealings with people with disabilities? And sometimes again, no two people with disabilities would react the same anyway. No, they wouldn't. We did quite a bit of work with the Phoenix Society a couple of years ago, including their website and some collateral. And the thing that we all recognised the most was the work ethic of the people inside that organisation, disabled or otherwise. It's phenomenal. They just get all the crap out the way, all the politics, and they just do a really, really good job. And that's one of the biggest takeaways we've had from working with these kind of organisations. That's interesting, because Graham Innes, the recently retired Disability Discrimination Commissioner, made the point that, employers out there, you should be employing people with disabilities, because in terms of bang for your buck, their return on what they do is probably better than the average person in the street. So it's interesting that you're sort of echoing those sort of thoughts as well. Yeah, it's amazing that you can clearly see that demonstrated in the workplace.
And what about as far as things like website and accessibility goes? Is that sometimes a bit of a fine line as well, making it funky or sexy or whatever the term is, but at the same time, easy for people with, say, a vision impairment or a person with a disability to access as well?
Yeah, there's a whole string of best practice guidelines around developing websites, etc., for accessibility. But the most important thing is that a screen reader can actually read the content in the correct hierarchy. So it actually makes our job easier because you really have to simplify things. And I think too often design can be a bad practice of over-prettiness for the sake of it.
Okay, that's interesting because, on this program we've been chatting for years and years and banging on about, how sometimes websites are so inaccessible and then you get some that are and you think, well, why can't those that aren't be like those that are? I mean, can it be that difficult? And if there's a blueprint or a template for those that are accessible, then, it'd be good if other people could follow it. But you've obviously done a fair bit of work in this area to know the sort of lingo that you're using.
Yeah, it's a matter of understanding the target audience and whether you actually need to be aware of these things or not.
So is that part of your brief in a way to know the client that you're working with and also to know about their target audience and, who you're trying to help, not just the client itself, but who their client, the client of the client, as it were?
Yeah, exactly. The client, our client always it's generally business to business, so they've always got an end user, a customer that's using the tool that we're making for them. So you need to consider how they're going to use it, who it is that's going to be using it. Are they vision impaired? Are they using it when they're out in the field, and therefore it needs to be much easier to read than a 27-inch screen on your desktop, in the comfort of a chair.
Dan, how do you sort of advertise yourself, if you like? How do you market yourself? Is that sometimes a difficult thing?
It's word of mouth for us. We've got a couple of really high lifetime value clients that when they move from one organisation to another, we follow them, but we retain the work of their previous workplace, and that's an incredible honour for us to have. So our best marketing tool is servicing our clients so that they want to keep coming back.
Okay, that's a pretty ringing endorsement. I guess for people listening in tonight who might have their own business or thinking of setting one up, I guess they're the sort of things that probably common sense, but maybe are also easy to lose sight of.
Easy to lose sight. Can you ask me that question again? I'm not quite sure I'm following you.
Well, you talked about the fact that the clients that still stay with you. It's probably a simple message, but maybe sometimes it is a sort of message that you can lose sight of.
You could probably turn it rephrase it this way, and that might be it's 6 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to keep an existing one. So when you focus on the clients you've got and you look after them, it's much easier to reap the rewards than dissatisfy an existing customer who's going to go and tell other people. But you're losing that game straight away. Yeah,
it's about, as you said, almost right from the beginning, word of mouth.
Yeah, it's the best way to market.
Yeah, so if people, if you have a bad experience, you're happy to tell everyone about it, aren't you? That's what we do.
Adelaide's a small place, isn't it? You can't really afford to disappoint anybody.
Yeah. Well, Dan, so Creative Grease, if people do want to find out more about you, what's the best way to do that?
They can visit creativegrease.com.au. They can find us on Facebook. They can have a look at the I Support a Star website. They'll find a link from there to us and to the other amazing providers that also support Raj and Blind Sporting Council and the work that they do. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you tonight and talk about the work that we do and have a chance to have a say.
Oh, that's terrific. So creativegrease.com.au, and Grease, as I said, is Grease.
Correct.
And people can also check out the Blind Sporting Council's website, blindsport.com.au, and they're always doing some fantastic amount of work. I know recently the National Goalball Championships run in Adelaide, and obviously supporting lots of sport for people who are blind or vision impaired. Dan, keep up the good work, and thanks for the chat.
Thanks for your time.
That's Dan Kuss there, who's the ringleader, also the owner, but the ringleader is how he likes to be known for Creative Grease, the marketing company who is teamed up with the Blind Sporting Council to do some fantastic work. So it looks like we're not going to